Hello. So I brought a helper today. This is Onyx. He is going to help me make sure I'm not crocheting in down here. Okay, so I have to do a video today for you for day 2 and day 3 because day 2 was a complete disaster for me. And so for a second, you're going to use your imagination. Here's my color chart. We had in the 30s the first day. The second day was a snowstorm, and today it's freezing. So it's like 16 degrees outside. So I'm going to be using navy for my third row. Onyx is such a good boy. He's super helpful. He helps me crochet a lot. Okay, so to get started, we're going to pretend like we didn't do the second row yet because you guys didn't. And I'm going to, so you're not going to have a stitch marker. What you're actually going to have is your last chain from your chain. So I'm first going to show you if you do not have to change color. It's because I do. So just in case any of you that don't need to change color, you're going to put your hook into the middle of your last chain in your V. I'm doing it into row 1 because I finished row 2 yesterday, so I'm doing it under my whole V. And then you're just going to make your single crochet like you always would. And then, oops, Onyx is jumping ship. Over here, friend. And then you're gonna, he's so funny. And then you're gonna turn your work. Sorry. You're gonna turn your work and you're gonna notice that you're looking at the back of your stitches. So you don't see any V's when you hold it like this. It's just the back of your stitches. And you're going to actually turn the work up towards you so that you can see your V's. So you'll see all your V's from row 1. And then we're going to crochet right into those. So the number one mistake that people make when they first learn how to crochet, especially if they haven't learned from a video and they've self-taught or learned from a book, is that people, and I did this too, people think that you have to choose, one loop to crochet into, so front loop or back loop. But actually, you're going to crochet into both loops every time. So the only time you would crochet into one or the other is if your pattern is asking you to do so. And we're not going to do that. We're just making single crochets. So the first thing I'm going to do to start my second row is I'm going to chain 1. So I'm going to put my hook under and yarn over 1 and go through my hole 1 time. This is just a chain. It's not going to count as a stitch, and it's just going to help us keep our rows even going all the way down. So it's just going to make our edge flush. So we're not going to count that. So our first stitch is going to be going under our whole V for our last stitch we did on our row. So you can see my hook is inserted under both loops of my V. And I'm going to yarn over once and go through the whole entire V. So now my V is no longer on my hook. And then I'm going to yarn over again and do my single crochet. So then my first one is done. So after I do my first stitch, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. And I'm going to put my stitch marker into my very first V, because we want to make sure that our blanket is not going to get bigger or smaller as we go. We want it to be one whole size. And you can see that I can still see the little loop from my chain. So it's very common that somebody might think that when they come back, if they didn't have this stitch marker here, they might think this is another stitch that they need to stitch into. So then their blanket will get bigger, 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 bigger all the way down. And if you crochet tight like I do, you're going to get your stitches pulled up. And this stitch might be what's called a hidden stitch, where you actually can't even see it when you get down. And you would think that your next stitch is your last one. And then your blanket will get smaller all the way down. And we don't want either of those things. So we're going to mark every stitch. I used to have to do this. Well, when I first started, I didn't know what the problem was. I just knew my blankets got bigger and smaller. And sometimes they went back and forth. And then someone told me I should mark my first stitch every time. So I started doing that. And then I eventually trained my eyes to be able to find the correct stitch. Now, sometimes, depending on if it's a new stitch I haven't done before or what kind of blanket it is, I still have to mark them just to make sure that I get the right one. So going forward through the whole blanket, we're going to go, the whole row, we're going to go under our whole entire V, and we're just going to single crochet in every single stitch all the way down. And this is going to be the same for every row going forward. So as you go on your second row, and I'm doing my third row, so I'm not going to make a day 3 video because this is going to go work for both. So I'm going to go all the way down that way. So now I'm going to unravel, and I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to show you how to change color because I actually need to do a new color for day 2. So I will be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to change color going into my next row. So every time you have to change color in a row, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to go into your stitch just like you would have when I showed you if you're not going to change color, and you're going to yarn over and go through your V. Now, when we change color in crochet, all we're doing is we're replacing our last loop with our new color. So I'm going to pinch the tail under my fingers here, and I'm going to get my tail for my next color. And I'm going to pinch that under there too, so it stays tight. We don't want it to be super loose in our change. And then I'm going to do my yarn over with my new color, and I'm going to go through my stitch. So then I made my last stitch for row 1. Now, I mentioned before in my color change video that I'm very paranoid about my work unraveling. So I always knot everything, even though other people probably don't do that. But so for this blanket, I decided that I'm going to make some little some tassels for the border, which I saw on someone else's temperature blanket, and I thought it looked really cute. So I'm just going to leave all these tails here. I'm going to cut off my color from row 2, and I'm going to move that out of my way. And then I'm just going to have these tails just hanging here, and I'm just going to leave them because I'm going to use them for my tassel. So then I'm going to go ahead and turn my work like I did in the first part of the video. And you can see the back of the stitches, but I need the top. So I'm going to chain with my new color just like I did if I wasn't changing color. And then I'm going to go under both loops of my V, always under both loops. I'm going to yarn over and pull through. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through again for my single crochet. And then I'm going to immediately stop what I'm doing, and I'm going to mark my stitch. This yarn is thicker than the last 2 yarns I used, so it's just a little bit fatter up here. Sorry, my hands are shaking. I don't even know why. I didn't drink coffee or anything. If I did, I wouldn't even be able to talk right. Okay, so I'm going to go under both of my loops, and then I'm going to continue all the way down my row under both loops of my V every time. So you can see when you do under both loops of the V, it's really hard to crochet, especially with single crochet because they're much tighter. It's really hard to crochet twice in the same stitch on accident because I can't even see that stitch anymore. And it's also it's not super hard because if you're going fast and you're not, you're distracted, you could easily skip a stitch, but it's not a big deal if you do. We can make it up in the next round. But so you're just going to hit every single V every time, the whole entire V. And then it's going to become really difficult when we do that to skip or miss a stitch because we're taking our whole entire stitch with us. We can't see it. It's obvious what the next stitch is because there's no extra loops hanging there. And we're just going to do that all the way down. And then when I get done, I'll just pop in quick for a finish of the row. Okay, I'm almost done with my row. I just want to check in and make sure that you're going under both loops of your V every single time. your whole entire V for every stitch. And then you're going to the next V and going under the whole thing every time. Now it's still a little bit awkward to hold because it's still very thin. And also I'm just gonna say that my left hand is completely numb because I did this twice yesterday, and I also made like 15 granny squares last night, so my hands tend to go numb, which I've been dealing with all my life, so don't worry about it. Okay, so I got to my last one, and you see that I have this stitch marked as my first stitch I did on that row. So I'm not going to do that one right now because we don't know if we're going to have to change colors tomorrow or not. You can also see where someone might have thought that this was the last stitch because it still looks like a little loop right there. It doesn't look like a V, but I don't know, maybe it's a stitch. But we know that it's not because we marked our first stitch. So that's why we're going to do this the whole time, because I just don't want somebody to... Usually it takes a few rows, so you might be like 5 rows in and realize that your blanket's getting smaller each time, and then you don't want to have to redo all of that. So you can see here I've got 3 rows done. After this video you'll have 2 rows done, and then again you can do the third. So this is for second and third row, and it looks pretty cute so far. You can see it's not quite so curly Q anymore because it's starting to get some weight on it. And I'll probably just check in like every couple days now because every single row is going to be the same things. I'll probably make a video if I run into some sort of issue that I haven't thought of yet that you might run into. If you have any questions that you run into, just let me know, and it probably will help someone else if I make a video to get through that. And I think that's it. I just want to show you. Onyx became a stick for the rest of the video. He is part lizard, part stick, and he likes our little thingamabobber here, tripod thingy. My children want to be part of the video at the end too, I guess. So he helped me the whole time. He's a good boy.